Hi everyone, so I'm back with the video as promised. I am talking about my failures throughout my process of becoming a dentist. If you haven't checked out my video on how I became a dentist at such a young age, 23, then check out my video. I'll link it over here. And without further ado, let's get started. My first failure is when I was in college. I was taking the DAT. And I've shared this on my Instagram before. I'm pretty not good at math. I'm not good at math. Like, that's not to say that I wasn't performing well in math. Like, I was always in calculus AP and like always in the highest tier math course. And I would do well in those courses because I would study and I would do well in the class. But I'm just naturally not a math-driven person, if you know what I mean. Like, I can't mentally do a lot of math. Like, I still count on my fingers, which is very embarrassing. And like, if you tell my husband's very good at math. If you tell my husband, like, what's blah, blah, blah divided by blah, 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 he can just, for me, I'll get to the right answer eventually, but I usually need to write it down and go through the proper steps to get to the right answer. Now, why is it a problem that I can't do math? Like I said, I was in the 3+3 accelerated program at UOP. Part of that program is that we do 3 years of undergrad, then we go to 3 years of dental school. But there is a point at which we have to apply to get into dental school. Part of the program is that if we hit all the requirements in undergrad, we get an interview. But let's say that you do not hit the requirements, you will not be able to go to the dental school. So one of the requirements was that you cannot get anything lower than a 17 on any one section of the DAT. There's also a GPA requirement. I think you have to get at least above a 3.5 or something like that. I can't remember exactly the number, but it was not a problem for me. I studied math, but I didn't focus that much on math because, like, you know, I know math. Like, the math on the DAT, by the way, is not very hard. The problem with math on the DAT is that you have to go kind of fast. And so if you are a slow math test taker like I am, then you won't finish that section. But I was trying to focus on the sections that I thought I wouldn't do as well in. What happened is that I did very well on all the sections, like 99 point something percentile in every section except math. Math, I got a 16. When I opened my thing, my results, and I saw that 16, my heart sank because it doesn't, when you get a 16 in math and 17 is the cutoff, it doesn't matter how well you did in all the other courses. Like, obviously that thought went through my mind. I was like, well, I did so well in all the other portions. Maybe they'll overlook the fact that I didn't do well in math. That's not the case. And then I also thought, like, oh, maybe I'll just not apply to UOP. Maybe I'll just apply to other schools. I'm sure they would be happy that I did very well in all these other sections. In the back of my mind, I knew I wanted to go to UOP. So it took a while for this to sink in my head. I was just like, God, do I have to take this test again? Like, it took me a while to convince myself that I had to take this again because I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna score this well again, especially because I was in a fast-paced accelerated program. Like, I was finishing my undergrad in 3 years, and that last year that I was taking the DAT again, I had a really heavy course load of very academically challenging courses. So I was taking biochem and genetics at the same time, same semester, which are very difficult courses, notoriously difficult in UOP to take at the same time. Not only that, I realized I have to take the DAT as well, retake it again. And I was just like, like, how am I gonna do this? I didn't study very much in the other sections because, you know, I didn't have the time. All of the time that I spent studying is math. So I spent a couple weeks just studying math and took it again, crossed my fingers, and weirdly enough, I did really well in all the sections again and pulled my math up to a 17. Woo! When I saw that 17, I was like, yes, yes, yes. So for people who don't know, I took the DAT twice. I want to talk about another failure. I don't consider this an actual failure. This is not a failure. Like, as a professor in a dental school, I don't see this next part as a failure. I see it as like a learning experience. Basically, when I got to dental school, part of what we do is not just didactics, but also we go into the sim lab and we start working with our hands and training them so that we can work on patients in the future by doing certain tasks like drilling certain fillings, drilling certain crowns. So I think I talked about this in one of my Instagram posts, actually. It's one of my recent Instagram posts where, as a kid, one of the things that I just don't naturally have in me is what my dad calls a killer's instinct, which is like, if I'm to reference tennis, when the ball comes, I can't just put it away. Like, I don't take the opportunity. I just like hit it back and keep the ball in play. And that's one of my weaknesses. I don't take the opportunity to crush it when I need to. I don't like, crunch time is something that is a lot of pressure for me. So this comes into play whenever I take tests. Like test taking was very difficult for me. I could never like really crush it on a test. I would just put too much pressure on myself, get way too in my head. But there is this skill. It's a skill that I was not born with, that I had to sort of learn with time. And that is performing when I need to perform. It's a very competitive sport type of skill. Like, you know, when it's crunch time, when it's time to play the game, you have to turn it on and excel. And some people are really freaking good at that. And some people are not. I'm not good at that. And that's one of the things I realized, because in dental school, this idea of taking a timed practical exam, it's a sport, right? It's a sport. You have, the timer goes on, you have to be able to perform your best under very critical conditions, high pressure conditions. It's something that I had trouble with. I would stay after school, I would practice. I would say my hand skills were pretty good. I was able to perform very well on daily work, but when the timer went on, I would just choke. And it was really frustrating for me. So basically, even though I was doing really good daily work, I couldn't do well on the part that counts, which is the timed practical exam. And so I was put into remediation. When I was put into remediation, I was like sort of devastated. I was like, God, is dental school for me? I don't know if this is for me. Like, if I have to keep taking these exams the whole entire time, how am I gonna pass this stupid school? And I was sort of frustrated because I was like, I know my hand skills are not really a problem. I just need to be able to overcome this whole like mental thing where I'm putting too much pressure on myself and I can't perform. So I was put into remediation and I thought like I was a failure. Remediation, you guys, is not a failure. Like, let me tell you, I'm a professor at USC School of Dentistry, and I see students like this all the time who try so hard. They have pretty good hand skills and they fail their TPX. And a lot of times I'll talk to them because I have a lot of sympathy for these students. I was there, you know. I talk to them, I'm like, what happened? Like, I know you do pretty well. And they'll say like, I just choked. And I'm like, you know, you can do this. Like, you have to know that you can do it. Stop putting so much pressure on yourself. The problem with a TPX, for people who are not in the dental field, who are like, you just need to pass that. Like, what's so hard about it? We're measuring things in millimeters. So if you can wrap your head around what a millimeter is, and we actually measure things in half millimeters and 0.25 millimeters. So any wrong move, you're done. You have 3 hours to prep a crown. If you make one small little mistake, you're done. Adios, amigo. Like, you fail. Like, let's say that you're just working and somebody comes and hits your chair and you like accidentally like get bumped, you're done. So there's very strict parameters that we grade people on, which is important because it doesn't change when you become a real dentist. You have to be able to perform in a high stress situation in real people. You can't just take that tooth out and put another one in. You have to be able to perform in these high stress situations, and that's what dental school is all about. So in a way, it's a sport. In remediation, there is an exam at the end of remediation. You have to be able to pass that exam. And weirdly, let me tell you, this was a scary story. Friday night, the day before, there was a dental sorority fraternity thing that I went to, and they were serving wine, and I had some wine and I'd never had wine before, and it really messed me up. Like, I woke up, like, I think I threw up. I woke up the next morning without an alarm. Like, I had forgotten to set my alarm, which is so stupid, but I was like, oh my God, I'm almost gonna miss my exam. And I just did it so well on that TPX, and I think it's because there were so many other things on my mind. Like, I de-stressed the night before, and in the morning of, like, I wasn't like walking to school like thinking like, oh, I need to do really well, or else they're gonna kick me out of school. Like, that's sort of like my mentality when I was walking to these TPXs. I'd be like, oh my God, I need to do well. This time when I came, I was like running, I was like, I need to make it. And then I sat down and I just did the whole thing. And I did put so much pressure on myself, and I just kicked ass. So I think there is a stigma that if you were ever a remedial student that you're gonna be a bad dentist. No, you're not gonna be a bad dentist. These TPXs are unrealistic situations, but you need to be able to pass these TPXs or else you won't make it through dental school. It's a part of dental school. So you have to figure out a way to pass. And if I can do it, you can do it. My last failure. This is a doozy, let me tell you. This put me almost into a depression. I don't know why I'm laughing. So in your last year of dental school, there are 2 board exams, part 1 and part 2. In dental school and an accelerated program like UOP, there is no summer to study for your board exams. You are studying at the same time as your course load. So basically after night clinic at like 9 o'clock, 9:30, I would go to the library and study until like 1 o'clock in the morning for this part 2 exam. So I did fine on part 1. Part 2, I actually did not pass. And it's not like I didn't study for the exam. It was a weird year where like literally half the school didn't pass part 2, and it was across the country. People were failing part 2. Like if you went on Dental Town, which I don't know if Dental Town is still a thing, but if you go on Dental Town, there were threads on threads of people failing part 2. And I was one of those people. A lot of actually really smart, intelligent people in my school failed. So it made me feel a little bit better, but at the same time, I was still screwed because basically I'd applied to residency and I had gotten into residency, and my residency acceptance was contingent on me passing this part 2. The other thing that was very stressful is that I had opted not to take my clinical board exam for licensure because I was getting licensure by reciprocity through going to residency. So basically, let me just break this down for you. If I don't pass part 2, I don't get to go to residency and I graduate as a dentist without having a license. That's a lot of stress. Yeah, I basically kicked it into high gear, didn't go out, didn't socialize, didn't do anything. Every day I would go to like a Starbucks and just study. I was so stressed out, like you could see it in my face. I was legit depressed. I was depressed. I was like so obsessed with passing this test. I really felt like the walls closing in on me. Ugh. It was just the worst feeling ever. And I took the exam, the whole country passed. Like well actually some people didn't pass, and when they got their scores before me, I kind of freaked out, but I opened mine, I passed, took a deep breath, everything was well. But I think people are surprised to know that I took the part 2 exams twice. And I honestly don't think it was my fault that I failed the first time. Like, there's a lot of things I'll cop up to where I'm not a good test taker and stuff, but I knew my material, and part 2 is traditionally not as hard as part 1. In part 1 I did fine, and I think I should have passed part 2, but I do think there was like some like weird kink in the system that year, but that weird kink really seriously put me into a deep depression. I don't want to end this video in a sad note. I want you guys to know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You have to be able to perform when it calls for it. This dental school journey is not perfect. Even if you are smart, like I would say that I'm smart, I would say that in many ways I was successful, but there were lots of kinks in the road, and you have to rise above. You have to rise above, and if I can do it, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it.